Things like absenteeism,
Correct.
things like the health of individuals manifested in terms of tardiness, sick leaves, being demotivated by not showing up in the meetings fully prepared. Ganon din yun. Pag tinignan mo yung isang diabetic, for example, you will see signs like hypertension, signs like fatigue. Ganon din sa organization health.
Hi everyone, this is Marie Ampeloquio from Radix HR, now opening season 2 of Breaking the Mold. With us is a very familiar face. Alam niyo naman po tayo, mahilig po talaga tayo ng conversation about health and wellness. So this particular guest is no stranger to you guys. He is our nutrition network coach. Please welcome Oca Sañez.
Hello everyone. Hi Marie.
Hello.
It's great to be here.
How have you been from the last conversation?
It's pretty good. Doing a lot of my own education program as well.
Correct.
I love what you do though.
Thank you. And Oca, hindi na ako lalayo. Ang laki ng viewership natin from the last episode.
Thank you.
They loved about food as medicine and why we get fat.
I'm happy to share whatever I know with everybody.
Yes. And before we go deep into the conversation, I knew what's pretty new with you is you started your own channel. Can we let people know who are into fitness and wellness? What are the new things that you're doing? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? What are the new channels that you have at this point?
I'm into the big social media platforms.
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's Coach Oca or Oca Sañez on Instagram.
Okay, and obviously you're breaking down the things that needed to be break down as far as health and wellness is concerned,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Okay, and today our topic is something I'm very passionate about because in the world we live in, Oca, you yourself have been a very senior executive in amazing organizations here in the Philippines and abroad. Sustaining leadership is really hard when your cup is not full, when you're running on empty, no?
Yeah.
And importante to conversation na to, can you at least on your end name some of the signs that you see are evident, no, with the naked eye, and some symptoms that are not very seen or visible in the naked eye as far as a burnout is concerned?
Oh, that's a great question, Marie. And I'm glad you coined the word symptoms because in the same manner that we look at individual health of people with diagnostics, breathing symptoms, ganon din sa organizations. There are symptoms that a leader should be sensitive to or the leadership team should be sensitive to that reveal a few things about what's going on in the organization. And a lot of them deal with how, as a group, as a team, as a large organization, behaviors are being manifested.
Yeah.
Things like absenteeism,
Correct.
things like the health of individuals manifested in terms of tardiness, sick leaves, being demotivated by not showing up in the meetings fully prepared. Ganon din yun. Pag tinignan mo yung isang diabetic, for example, you will see signs like hypertension, signs like fatigue. Ganon din sa organization health. There are things that HR practitioners call background noise or background conversations that happen that we should be sensitive to because those are things that you need to be able to fix. Otherwise, it can become serious eventually when you're starting to see greater degree of absenteeism, for example.
Correct.
That will be the start of a lot of fallouts.
Correct.
That eventually results will suffer. So from a level of just symptoms, lalabas na yung bad results.
Correct.
And that's, as a leader, you are accountable to that, di ba? So your responsibility starts when you start seeing the symptoms. The problem is, a lot of leaders don't recognize those.
Exactly. So, Oca, as a coach, how do you coach the leaders in the company on how to foster the atmosphere of making wellness a central focus of their concern? Because, as you said kanina, results suffer, productivity goes down, absenteeism is high, and it's not helping anybody at any rate. So, can you tell me what actual steps have you done talking to a lot of clients that are leaders here and abroad?
Yeah. The role of the leader is very important here. The way I would coach leaders in this area would be, first of all, the sensitivity to understanding those symptoms, because
Correct.
they cannot really fall deaf to simple things like absenteeism.
Yes.
There are serious implications of that, and the sensitivity is very important. Second is an attitude towards challenging some of those behaviors in the same way that as a person you would recognize symptoms and ask, why is this happening to me? You
Right.
would have to say the same thing for
Right.
your organization. Why is it happening? What behaviors should be challenged? Being late for meetings, for example, being absent to some important events
There you go.
are signs already that can be challenged. And the next step to that is being able to either talk to the individuals, talk to the leaders, the team leaders, and try to go to the root of the problem.
Right.
Ang diagnosis, individual health, ganon din eh. You go to the root of the problem. Because hypertension, for example, is not the problem. The problem is what's causing that. And it may be
Correct.
something else like high sugar or diabetes or problem with the arterial wall, of the bloodstream. So understanding how to approach a team leader
Yes.
to be able to challenge behaviors is very important.
Right.
Now, when you ask those questions, they have to be with the attitude of understanding what's causing rather than
Yes.
challenging the leader because you just don't want that behavior. It's just that
Tama.
it's not just saying unacceptable yung behavior, di ba? Kasi
Exactly.
hindi mo masosolve yung problem. Kung
Yes.
magagalit ka lang and then write a letter to the employee saying it's not acceptable, you have to go to the root of the problem.
Correct.
And the root of the problem requires individual one-on-one
Correct.
or really going through a problem-solving or crisis-solving session with the
Correct.
team or the team leaders.
Tama. And because you talked about it from also the angle of the leader, yung
Yeah.
parang how to spot and how to determine whether yung team member ko nandoon na sa bingit talaga na burnout na siya o pa-burnout na. Doon naman sa angle, Oca, of the employee,
Right.
ano ang kanyang kailangan gawin kung nandoon na siya sa bingit ng recognizing that, okay, I think at a phase na nag-burnout na ako, anong kailangan niyang tingnan or alamin?
Yeah.
And many a times kasi they really set it aside, hindi na alam kung sino kakausapin or may programa ba yung company
Yeah.
that actually supports it,
Yeah.
diba?
Oh, very important for the employee to be very honest with himself or herself, and very honest with the boss or a mentor. A lot of companies do recognize the importance of having mentors as well.
Yes.
Who may
Parang
not-
accountability
That's right.
partners,
May
right?
not necessarily be your boss,
Right.
but the mentor is there to have somebody you're more confident with in terms of opening up certain issues with your team.
Yes.
Because emotional, psychological problems will affect your work. Definitely. Will affect people around you. And of course, will affect yourself in terms of your own health. And being honest with that and being able to talk about it openly is the very first step
Okay.
to really fixing a problem that encompass a lot of things that can damage the whole organization, actually.
Right.
And that honesty will actually be partly solving the problem already because
For sure.
sometimes bilang ganon, yung sinabi mo, nailabas mo lang yung problema mo, you feel better about it already.
Actually.
Diba? And that's a very important thing because if you listen with empathy,
Mhm.
which is very important, a lot of
Yes.
bosses listen without the empathy portion and therefore just goes through the rhythm of it. It's not as effective. But
Okay.
if you have that empathy, you recognize what's causing that certain behavior, whether it's a family problem,
Correct.
problem with the child. We all go through that. We have families.
For sure.
We have financial problems too. Will be a big first step. Kasi kung wala yun, you will not be able to really achieve anything.
Correct.
You will not be able to get to number 2, number 3. So that honesty is very important.
And now I want to go into nutrition per se.
Sure.
Are there food groups that actually intensify a burnout?
Yeah,
In
it's
the same token,
yeah.
that are there food groups that would actually decrease or alleviate burnout
Yes.
faster?
Yeah, they're actually new ones, no? They're kind of combination of a lot of things, no? As they say, there's environment and there's genes, and there's the food that you take. Environment includes the food you eat. It includes the work environment. Stress, for example, is a very important environmental factor that affects your health.
Tama.
Now, when you're under severe stress or chronic stress,
Yes.
may effect yan sa how you eat it.
Okay.
Then you eat without being mindful of what you're eating kasi under stress ka eh. When you eat like that, no, it doesn't matter what you eat kasi the choice of what you eat will be adversely affected. When you're in front of a supermarket or a fast food outlet, if you're under stress and you're very hungry, you will eat
Exactly.
anything eh. Ang nangyari doon,
Unfortunately true.
no matter what advice I give as a coach, if you're under stress all the time and you don't create the right environment for a dining experience that is positive, you will make the wrong choices. You will choose the French fries. You will choose the latte with
Unfortunately.
all sorts of sugar in there because you will get some kind of a dopamine treat, which is in short-term happiness from the sugary, sweet kind of drink in there. So somehow that void inside you is somehow relieved. Parang alcoholism din yan. Same thing.
Right.
But sugar yung element, hindi alcohol. If you ask me what foods should help,
Yes.
there of course the healthy whole foods, no?
Yes.
Avoid the processed foods.
Yes.
Whole foods, meat, fish, eggs, poultry, vegetables, fruits are all good. But if you eat them in an environment that is very stressful,
Right.
without being mindful of the environment, then you will not be in a metabolic healthy state. You will create a lot of problems with your visceral fat, no, the fat around the organs. You will have arterial walls of your circulation system being a little bit damaged because of the insulin and sugar
Tama.
levels. And therefore, you will be unhealthy. And therefore, it will result to all those work behaviors that are not very good.
And okay, I'll go one level pa deeper again, which is, what are the common pitfalls na kailangan tingnan, abangan, o i-challenge ng ating mga leaders so that merong mga up-and-coming leaders kaka-promote lang. I mean, they're not even given all the arsenal needed, no? Much less ito pa, meron pa isang angle, which is to look at the health and well-being ng mga tao nila. Pero sana meron tayong framework or a few word of advice na solid na how can this even, kahit na bagong leader, yun nga ding lang lumang leader na, yung talagang tenured na in season, still hindi pa rin ma-pinpoint yung mga puntos na yan eh. So, can you give us some of this advice?
Sure. Usual thing that is missed out by leaders is creating the right work environment for high productivity.
Okay.
But there was a time na uso yung mga high productivity teams, no? High productivity workplace. And there's certain elements in there that are not driven towards organization health. Puro mga ano yun, planning and priority setting. But there are some soft areas, sometimes some leaders are not too comfortable with, that need to be emphasized. Creating the right environment includes areas around wellness. No?
Tama.
Are your employees able to take a break?
Yes.
Are your employees able to see the sunlight
Yes.
somehow? Or your windows closed because you don't want them to be wandering, daydreaming,
Even you
looking
setting
at
up
the clouds.
You're setting up the environment. You're talking about that even. Is kahit ano yung binigay na ng kumpanya sa'yo, if you have other ways to actually intentionally put together an atmosphere na where they can relax. Okay.
Very important because the leader has to recognize that those are very important elements. Allowing your team members to take a walk every now and then.
Very good.
It's very important. As they say, sitting is the new smoking, di ba?
It is.
Long meetings, all-day meetings na hindi umaalis sa desk. Some employees eat in their desks kasi hindi na maka-break. That is very unhealthy.
Very unhealthy.
Being unable to stretch and move will affect their metabolic health. It will disrupt their metabolic health. And you will see that in terms of their focus and concentration and mental alertness.
Correct.
Mental acuity.
Yeah.
So allowing employees to take a walk, take a break is very important. A lot of companies now are employing standing desks or stand-up desks. I did that when I was still with San Miguel, and I don't think many of us chose to do that, but I was one of two senior leaders who selected stand-up desks. And that is tantamount to leading by example. If you understand what it takes to have an organization, an office that is open to a wellness objectives, then you will do those things. You will allow them to take breaks. You will allow them to take walks, to take their phone calls while walking.
Absolutely.
That is just a smart thing to do, and it's free. It's so easy to do. If
Correct.
leaders just recognize those things, they will be appreciated by the employees.
Correct. And how do you feel, Oka, about, because there is a scorecard that's actually always concentrated on financial targets, operational excellence, people, and compliance. What about a fifth scorecard? A scorecard where wellness is not just a minute portion of the people scorecard, but a separate scorecard on health and wellness mismo. Because again, you cannot go on empty, no? You need to fill your own cup.
Yes.
So how do you feel about promoting a fifth scorecard? Hindi na siya nakakabit na factor sa people na hindi naman siya top priority even for that, shall we say, target. Would you agree to it, to promote it to companies here in the Philippines and abroad to have a fifth scorecard?
That's an amazing idea. Our people are assets. They're probably the most important asset of any organization. Beyond the buildings and machines and other assets, the people asset is the most important. And to have scorecard around their health is a big driver for overall productivity improvement. A lot of the more progressive companies, global companies, are already starting to do that. And the way I've seen it is it becomes very successful when it's approached as a team. Okay?
Tama.
So team A, team B, team C within an organization
Right.
can lay down specific measurables. Things like we talked about absenteeism, sick leaves, things about medical health costs
Exactly.
can be monitored around being able to reduce that by way of organization or team-wide activities, whether it's yoga or Zumba activities,
Right.
as well as lectures and teach-ins on nutrition. If you put them all together, we'll read down to those kinds of numbers really improving. And you will see that in the bottom line, not just in terms of productive days,
Right.
but also in terms of cost savings.
Love that. I love that. I want to go with that. And I'm working with Oca and a group of what we call the longevity team. We have a cardiovascular, somebody who's an expert of movement, mental wellness. And of course, Oca is the only person we will work with as far as nutrition is concerned. We have this program called Intentional Pause. So tell us, Oca, what the Intentional Pause program is all about.
It's a great opportunity to see all the interventions that Radix has been working on a very holistic level. Because while we're doing things around coaching, doing things around planning, doing things around the medical area and nutrition area, and the physical exercise, in terms of individual interventions,
Yes.
if you look at everything as one, and the organization being able to set the kind of management time on each of them
Tama.
and allot them to the employees as available resource to them, you will see how impactful the whole thing can be. Because it's not just about an exercise. It's not just a simple yoga intervention, but there are a few other things that in combination becomes even more powerful. That's why I like the program.
Okay, thank you so much for enlightening our audience, because I think they will hear more from us individually between you and Dr. Cindy and Joanna and Radix, and also as a team. I think when we get together very soon, we'll also educate our audience. The other thing I want to go to, another thing on nutrition is there really a ratio? Because I know there are people who love to exercise a lot and some people who are so conscious only on nutrition, and there are people that are neither doing anything. What is really the ratio of our body in terms of what needs to be the focal of our attention? Is it 80% nutrition, 20% body, or 80% body, then mental wellness? I mean, that piece is something that I want to demystify with people who constantly ask a question, that what is that ratio?
Yeah, it's hard to put a number to it because every individual is different.
Yes.
What is something I can say in general is that the biggest factor, and I'm not being biased,
I'm sure,
is going to be nutrition as an input to your health. I say that because scientifically it's been established that genes, for example, play a role, but most of the tests that had come out reveal that even in twin studies, studies of twins, will have different metabolic health when they're separated at birth and then grew up in a different environment. For the most part, nutrition being the most different profile for each of them, meaning that they have exactly the same genetic makeup as identical twins, but growing up in a different environment with food being served in a different profile created different metabolic health status. Now, a lot of people in the exercise area, PE area, will say it is very important.
Yes.
I work hard
Mm.
doing my exercise program without fail
Mhm.
because there's an important element to being in condition,
Tama.
being with healthy cellular structure, healthy mitochondria.
Tama.
So this is at the subcellular level. You need to be able to say, I'm healthy at that level. It's important to have mental health being taken care of. It's important to have your emotional maturity and emotional balance in there, your relationships, how you deal with your own spirituality, and how you being one with nature. All of those are very important. In fact, in my coaching, I don't just talk about nutrition.
Tama.
I talk about the whole range of environment factors that really affect how you will be able to perform as an individual. And I embody those in my own personal habits.
Yes.
And I teach them because I know they work, not just because
Yes.
it works for me, but it works for a lot of individuals, work a lot in terms of the research that they're based on. So it's important to recognize all of those things.
Correct. And I'm just curious because you just opened a few channels for your own. You said TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. What are the common, most viewed topics that you have noticed? Is there like a trend where people are more conscious about your talk on sugar or carbohydrates?
Yeah, the most engaged subject is actually sugar, carbohydrates, and the impact of that in terms of chronic illness, particularly diabetes.
Okay.
Diabetes being such a popular, I wouldn't say popular, but a favorite subject these days because there seems to be, unfortunately, a bad trend towards increasing incidence of diabetes. Now, while it's easy to say cut down on sugar, because it looks as simple as that, parang ang simple naman, remove the sugar and fix your diabetes. It's really hard to do because you look around you, it's all sugar, it's all processed food, it's all mixed with a lot of things that you think are innocent. Even a simple orange juice, which you thought was healthy, apparently is not. And so it goes back to that. And that's why I keep talking about it, because it requires just really nailing it on people's heads and not to think of just today. Think about your future self. It may be a short-term satisfaction, a short-term dopamine hit, as what some psychologists would call. But it builds up. It accumulates and it becomes a problem later on. Combined with the kind of work environment you have now, which is, like you said, the stress at office, stress plus sugar, bad combination.
Absolutely.
There are three important topics that came out to be very high engagement with the audience. One is the impact on metabolic health of sugar, sugar and simple starches. Second is the oils, the industrialized oils that we thought to be healthy, but they're not. The modern oils tinatawag. And then third is actually the ultra-processed foods. They're actually all related to each other because they all seem to be everywhere. She said, para everywhere you look, everything is sugar, the bad oils, and processed food. And it's very hard to turn your head against them. But you have to make that conscious effort to really avoid them, because I always try to remind people that while they seem to be very easy, when you say, oh, just avoid those things and you'll be fine, they're really hard. And therefore, your attitude needs to be more about how it is going to be in the future, not just about the moment. Like sinabi natin kanina, kung gutom na gutom ka na, huwag kang bibili ng food, because that's when you're so vulnerable to the bad.
You're going to make a mistake.
That's
for
right.
Sure.
So think about your future self. Don't think about the short-term
I love that.
dopamine hit, because it accumulates. No?
Yes.
The bag of potato chips that you had just this morning will eventually create more hunger, and you will have more of the processed foods later on. So more bad oils, more artificial sugars and sweeteners accumulating over time. And before you know it, you have diabetes. You are already candidate for dialysis.
Correct.
They have to cut your leg. Those are serious conditions. And you just don't laugh it off, or you don't want to just, it's not good to not think about them, because those are strong possibilities if you make continuous bad choices every day.
Correct. And somebody told me in relation to a favorite saying of yours that I always say to a lot of people, maybe hundreds now. Sabi nila, the way to heaven feels like hell and the way to hell feels like heaven. It's about eating food.
That's
Diba?
right. Yeah.
That, like you always say, this is your quote, that the way to an illness, actually to diabetes, is through food, and the way out of it is also
That's
through
right.
food. Because of that, at pinag-usapan natin ang sustainability of a leader and how to avoid burnout. What can a leader do? Sa nutrition lamang, maraming bagay about coaching, performance, pero kung ikaw ay coach that wants to really make a difference, ang difference I think will come dun sa health and wellness part.
Right.
Kasi you need to be setting a great example dun sa future self niya.
Right.
So, with that topic, if I'm a leader, I have a team of 20 people that I meet with every single day. Team leader ako, supervisor ako, assistant vice president ako for operations, senior vice president ako for 3 countries. I am a leader that influences people under me.
Right.
Tell them what can they do differently about the food habits ng mga tao na kasama nila in and out of their life. Wala sa bahay, ikaw ang kanilang leader, magulang, tatay, kuya. Tell them about it.
Well, be concerned about their health in as much as you should also be concerned about your own health. And it's important that you gain the knowledge for what are the food products that will make you or help you to be in optimal metabolic health.
Tama.
And if you can lead the way or lead your team towards those practices, you already won the first step or your
Yes.
first successful step towards a really more productive organization.
Yes.
So worry about your employees if you think that they are over-consuming processed foods, for example.
Yes.
If all they bring to work is a bag of crackers, cookies, skyflakes, not that I have anything against skyflakes,
Yes, yes.
they're not the kind of nutrient-dense food
Yes.
that's important to improving your health. So suggest better food items like
correct.
boiled eggs,
Exactly.
butter, cooked food from home instead of buying something at the convenience store.
Back to basics
Yeah,
tayo.
exactly. Worry about your employee if you notice that they're not getting enough sleep. And advise your employee to knock off early, take a break. Don't work until late at night because that will affect the circadian rhythm
Right.
of the employee and therefore the quality of sleep. Advise your employee to have a restful night so that they can have a productive day. Why? Because if you put too much effort on the work hours, push them to do overtime work, that's going to cost you as well because the next day they will not have the productivity that you want because
Right.
they have overworked that day. So the quality of work just compensates.
Right.
So if you are conscious of those things, then you will be able to recognize that, hey, if I'm worrying about these things about myself, what I eat and how I sleep, then I should worry about those things as well for my employees.
Correct. You know, Oka, you perfectly framed. Meron akong kasama sa opisina, by the name of Randy, he said, choose your heart. Would you rather have employees that are working long hours, siguro for 1 or 2 years, and then they get sick because you didn't take care of them?
Right.
Or alagaan mo na ngayon and you know that they will work for you for the longer haul, right? So choose your heart. It's hard.
Yeah.
Pareho siyang mahirap at the end of the day to take care of them short term and then long term.
That's right. Yeah.
With that said, Oka, maybe as a leader that is dynamically looking at nutrition as a focal point talaga ng longevity sa buhay, can you share with us talaga yung what food habits they can start removing and developing? I know you talked about processed food being removed, talking about the oils, eating more protein. Top 1 or 2 things that they can change in their life, pero simpleng na action lang. Baka akala nila sometimes, akala nila rocket science yung pinag-usapan natin. Pero actually, sobrang simple. Okay, I see you do things that are so simple and you have advised us also similarly, no? And life is really better, to be honest with you.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's actually very simple. I talk a lot about these things on my social platform.
Yes.
The problem is when you execute it, because of the many temptations around, it becomes hard. No?
Yes.
So easy to understand, hard to implement.
Yes.
But it's as simple as this. Number 1, eat real food.
Eat real food.
Eat real food. Meaning, if you can buy the chicken, cook it at home instead of processed nuggets or fast food kind
Right.
of meat, then you already have an advantage.
Yes.
If you can prepare like ground beef at home that you can turn into your own beef patty, that's better than going to a fast food store
Who
or fast
uses
food outlet,
oil,
uses bad oils,
bad oil.
mix it with bad dressings and a lot of sugar. Even the spaghetti outside is a lot of sugar. You can make your own.
Yes.
Then that's already a very, very important first step. Number two, it's important that you combine your eating with some practices that expose you to nature. For example, sun exposure, very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
If you work all day in the office without being exposed to nature, and then when you get home, it's already late in the evening, there's no more sun,
Yes.
and then you still work until late hours and you fall asleep in front of your iPad or laptop, you're not really getting into a better metabolic state.
Right.
So don't be afraid of the sun. Don't be
Yes.
afraid of walking outside first thing in the morning
All right.
because you get a lot of energy from that. You
Right.
get the right circadian signals
Right.
so that you get the hormones for daytime activated, which help your metabolism.
True.
And the hormones at night will be activated, which are things like melatonin, to help you put yourself to a restful sleep. So the exposure to nature is very important.
Love that.
And then number three is really being able to have a good connection, good relationship, and being able to have an eating environment that allows you to have that mindfulness when you eat. No? If you eat with a friend, for example,
Yes.
while you're chatting about the day's events, or eat with your family, eat with having good nutrition in mind, positives, then that will help also have that nourishment build up in your system. Believe it or not, there's what they call mindful eating that makes a big difference with mindless eating or
Correct.
eating in a hurry. You're not building the right enzymes and hormones to be able to build a really strong, healthy body. So eat whole food, but includes already avoiding all those sugars and
Yes.
bad oils and processed food. Number two, exposure to nature.
Yes.
Whether it's sunlight or just cloudy day or even rain, you can step outside in the rain. And that's a great experience. Be grounded, walk barefoot if you can.
Love that.
That's already a good practice in terms of being connected with nature. And number three, mindful eating, being able to have an environment where you're nourishing your body when you're eating and not just to eat for pleasure. Eat for nourishment, not for pleasure.
Wow. That's a perfect way, that's a perfect statement to end this particular episode. My God, not too many people, you don't hear too many people say that. Eat for nourishment, not for pleasure. With that said, Oca, we're at the top of the hour. Amazing conversation. And we will definitely see you in our longevity team conversation. But now allow me to thank you for
Thank
yet
you.
again.
Thank you. Look
being
forward to more engagements with you.
All right. This has been Marie Ampeloquio of Radix HR, breaking the mold for today. Thank you so much. Bye.